I'm a 30-year-old woman, and I never imagined my family would turn on me over helping underprivileged children. This situation began 7 years ago, but what happened last week needs to be told. After college, I started working as a mentor for at-risk youth at a local community center. I was 22 when I was paired with Mary, a 10-year-old girl whose mom, Amanda, 35, was juggling work and personal struggles. Mary was bright but falling behind in school due to her unstable home life. We met twice a week for tutoring and fun activities. About 6 months in, Amanda called me one night. She sounded drained and overwhelmed. They had just been evicted and she couldn't find affordable housing. She asked if I could take Mary in temporarily. I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment, so I agreed. What was supposed to be a few weeks turned into months. Amanda visited occasionally but still hadn't secured housing or consistent work. To ensure Mary was properly supported, the coordinator at the mentoring center encouraged me to become a foster parent. 6 months later, after finishing all the required training, Mary officially moved in. Amanda and I maintained frequent contact. I never tried to replace her. I reassured Mary that her mom still wanted her home. 5 years ago, when Mary was 12 and I was 24, Amanda had a stable income, but her living situation remained unpredictable. She was afraid of disrupting Mary's progress at school. After a long and emotional conversation, we decided I should pursue permanent guardianship. Amanda signed the papers, convinced this was the best decision for her daughter. From then on, life found a new rhythm. Mary thrived, made friends, joined debates, and excelled academically. Amanda called regularly and visited on weekends. I made sure they stayed close. 2 years later, Amanda reached out again. She was struggling to raise her toddler, Ethan, while working full-time. She asked if I could take him in too, so the siblings could stay together. I thought long and hard before welcoming 2-year-old Ethan into my home. Using my savings, I moved us into a 3-bedroom house with a yard. Around that time, I met Kevin, 31, at work. After several months, he took a job out of state and we split. I didn't realize I was pregnant when we broke up. Now, I'm 25 weeks along with my first biological child. My older sister Emily, 35, has been trying to conceive with her husband for nearly a decade, with no luck despite several fertility treatments. Each failed attempt was heartbreaking. Emily always saw herself as a future mom. She's dreamed of it since she was little. When Mary first moved in, Emily was incredibly supportive. She brought clothes and toys, and took her on weekend outings. She welcomed Ethan, too. But over time, her visits declined. She blamed work, but I think seeing the kids triggered emotions about her own struggles. 3 weeks ago, I told my family about my pregnancy. My parents were thrilled. Emily, however, gave a lukewarm, "Congratulations," and quickly changed the subject. Since then, she hasn't answered my messages or returned calls. Last week, my mom hosted Sunday dinner. I went solo. Mary and Ethan were with a friend. The meal was filled with pregnancy questions from my parents. How was I feeling? Did I pick names? Was the nursery ready? Emily just sat there, stone-faced. After dinner, she confronted me. She asked why I took in foster kids when I could have had real children. The room went silent. I explained Amanda had gotten help, and I became a foster parent to provide stability. I mentioned Ethan moved in to keep the siblings together. With every word, Emily's face tightened. She accused me of creating an instant family, after she had spent years trying. She said I became a mother without effort, and now I was carelessly having a baby of my own. Then came the most painful part. She claimed I stole foster children from deserving parents who couldn't have kids. Her words stunned me. These weren't random kids sent to a perfect couple. They were Amanda's children, and she specifically asked me to keep them safe. I understood Emily's pain, but I couldn't apologize for caring for vulnerable children. My mom quietly told me to leave. I gathered my things without arguing. The next day, she called and said I had been too harsh with Emily. She thought I owed her an apology. I texted Emily, apologizing for how I spoke but not for what I said. I acknowledged her struggles but refused to accept guilt for parenting Mary and Ethan. Emily didn't respond. Instead, she blocked my number and deleted me from her social media. My mom was supposed to come with me to my 28-week anatomy scan, but she cancelled. She said Emily was too upset and asked me to reschedule. I didn't. I took Ethan instead. The clinic staff adored him, and he flipped through picture books during the scan. His excitement watching the baby on the screen helped ease the absence of my mother and sister. After the scan, my mom texted asking how it went and the baby's gender. I saw the message but didn't reply. What could I say? That a toddler cared more than my family. 4 days ago, my dad called. He usually stays out of family drama, so I was surprised. He'd heard about the scan and wanted to check on me. He listened as I explained everything that had happened. When I finished, he said something unexpected, that my mom and Emily were wrong. He told me providing a safe home for kids in need was nothing to be ashamed of. While he empathized with Emily, he said she had no right to make me feel guilty. Then he offered to stay with me after the baby's born. He and his wife Susan would help with Mary and Ethan for 2 weeks while I recovered, even though they live 3 hours away. Yesterday, I heard from Emily's husband, Tom. He said after our fight and some therapy, Emily was devastated. He didn't ask for an apology but admitted her comments were unacceptable. He wanted me to know she was working on herself and hoped we could reconcile someday. I appreciated his honesty. I was glad Emily sought help. But any reconciliation must include respect for all 3 of my children. Mary and Ethan are not placeholders or consolation prizes. They're kids who need love and security. After that, I had a talk with Mary. I explained, in a way she could understand, that sometimes adults disagree and need space. I assured her none of this was her fault or Ethan's, and that our family, her, Ethan, the new baby, and me, was my priority. Mary paused and then asked why her aunt was upset about the baby. I explained that seeing someone get what you desperately want can hurt, even if you're happy for them. She nodded, saying it reminded her of when a friend got birthday sneakers she had wanted, but her mom couldn't afford them. Sometimes, 14-year-olds see things clearly. This morning, I accepted my dad's offer to help after the baby arrives. I also updated Amanda. She calls Mary twice a week and visits monthly. Her health has improved, she was promoted at work, and she's been in her own apartment for over a year now. She was concerned about the family tension and offered to take both kids for a weekend before the baby arrives so I can prepare. That offer reminded me what this journey is about, not guilt or bitterness, but doing what's best for the children in my care. And I won't apologize for that. Alex is now 9 months old, healthy, smart, and crawling into everything. Life's been busy, but we've settled into a good rhythm with our little family. The biggest change since my last update? Emily and I are slowly rebuilding our relationship. About 3 months ago, Emily texted asking to meet for coffee, just the 2 of us. Amanda kindly watched the kids while I went to a cafe halfway between our homes. At first, it was awkward. 10 minutes of small talk about the weather and haircuts. Then she pulled out her phone and showed me a picture of Marcus, her first foster child. Talking about Marcus made her expression soften. She told me about his love for dinosaurs, how he struggles with reading, and how every night he makes her check under the bed for monsters. She talked about his nightmares, how long it took to earn his trust, and the visits with his biological family. Then she said something that showed real growth. I thought fostering would fill the void in me, but it's not about me. Marcus is just a little boy helping his mom get better. I nodded, grateful she finally understood. She admitted Marcus's mom was now sober and working toward reunification. With tears in her eyes, she said she'd miss him but wanted him to go home if it meant he'd be safe and loved. Then, she apologized again. She said I didn't take children from anyone. She acknowledged how wrong and hurtful her words were at that dinner. She said her pain had made her bitter and blind. But fostering Marcus helped her see, foster kids aren't consolation prizes. They're kids who need a safe space while their families heal. I accepted her apology. I also apologized for the way I spoke to her back then. We spent the next hour talking about bedtime routines, building trust with scared kids, and navigating the relationships with their biological families. It felt like we were sisters again after years of tension. That weekend, Emily came to the park with Marcus to meet my kids. The connection was instant. Mary took charge, Ethan loved Marcus's dinosaur knowledge, and Emily got to finally meet Alex. She hugged him tightly, amazed at how big he'd gotten. Since then, we've been meeting monthly. It's not perfect, old emotions still flare up sometimes, but we keep showing up. My relationship with my mom is still more complicated. After that time she forced her way into my house, I wrote her a letter. I set boundaries, no more surprise visits, no criticism about my parenting, and she had to respect my family structure. I wasn't punishing her, I just needed peace. 2 months later, she sent a card. Inside was a short note. I miss my grandkids. I'm willing to listen. Let's try a brief visit. She came to Mary's school play last month. She hugged Mary and told her she was proud. Later that night, she pulled me aside and apologized for favoring Emily. She said watching my kids grow helped her realize what truly mattered. We're not all the way there yet, but it's a start. Amanda is still part of our lives. She brought her new boyfriend to dinner last month. Watching her proudly introduce him to Mary and Ethan was emotional. She told me she feels confident in her motherhood now, and she's grateful we stayed close. This journey taught me family isn't about biology, it's about showing up and supporting each other. Mary turned 16 last week. While we were prepping her birthday dinner, she asked if we could talk. I thought she just wanted to vent, but then she said, "I'm ready. I want to be adopted." We've talked about adoption over the years, always letting her choose when the time was right. Hearing her say it made me cry. We start the legal process next month. Ethan, now 4, absolutely adores his big sister and keeps Alex laughing. And Alex? He's the sunshine in our home. Watching him and his siblings together makes every sleepless night worth it. Emily and Tom are now fostering a second child whose mother is working toward recovery. Emily even called me for nursery advice. We talked for hours, about the logistics, the emotions, the heart of fostering. Life is full and beautiful. Not easy, but ours. I'm 34F, and I've spent the past few months dealing with serious family stress, so bad that it's caused insomnia. It all centers around my younger sister, Ella, 29F, her husband Richard, 31M, and their 2 kids, Jill, 7F, and Jack, 4M. Ella met Richard in college. They were total opposites. Ella was organized and structured, while Richard was easygoing and more relaxed. At first, they balanced each other well. They got married after graduation and had Jill a year later. Richard was thrilled to be a dad. He'd stare at Jill while she slept, talking about all the things he'd teach her. When Jack was born 3 years later, Richard was just as excited. He had always dreamed of having a son to take fishing and camping. But things changed. Richard got a new job that involved a lot of travel. Ella was left alone, working full-time and raising 2 kids. The distance between them grew. One day, Ella found a suspicious message on Richard's phone. He denied anything serious but admitted he had feelings for a coworker. That shattered their trust. Counseling didn't help. Richard became defensive and cold. 8 months ago, they separated. They agreed Richard would have the kids every other weekend. At first, it worked. He picked them up Friday and dropped them off Sunday night. Then the excuses started. He was working late, or he was sick. Eventually, he was only seeing the kids once a month, if that. I have 8-year-old twins, Emma and Olivia, and a 9-year-old son, Noah. Jill and Jack get along great with them. So whenever Richard canceled, I'd take Jill and Jack to avoid disappointing them. But Richard started calling me directly, asking me to take them on his weekends. He'd say, "Your place is usually better anyway." I was furious. I told him over and over he needed to step up, but the excuses never stopped. This reminded me of my ex-husband Brian. After our divorce, he constantly canceled last minute. It took me a while to realize how much that hurt my kids, and me. Eventually, I changed our custody arrangement. Brian could only see the kids if he asked ahead of time. It helped my kids stop expecting something that never came. They were happier. I told Ella about that experience. She was exhausted. Richard's unreliability made it impossible to plan her weekends. She thanked me for sharing and left. I thought that was the end of it. But a few days later, she told Richard she wanted to change their custody agreement. He flipped out. He accused me of poisoning Ella against him and stealing his kids. I was stunned. I never told Ella what to do. I only shared my story. Richard didn't want to hear it. He called me a terrible sister and told me to stay out of his family. Now my parents are siding with Richard. They say I crossed a line and that Richard just needs help, not judgment. They think he deserves more patience since he once helped my dad renovate their kitchen. Only my brother supports me. He's never liked Richard, especially after Richard forgot his birthday 2 years in a row. I started questioning myself. Did I overstep? Did I cause unnecessary drama? But then I remember how disappointed Jill looks when her dad cancels. Jack's still too young to understand, but even he's started asking why they don't see their dad as much. Part of me wants Ella and Richard to work things out. But I also want to fight for those kids. They deserve more than broken promises. A month later, everything came to a head. Richard canceled again, this time at 9 p.m. on a Friday. Ella had dropped off the kids for his weekend, and then he called saying he had to go out of town. Ella was furious. She had planned a rare kid-free weekend and was suddenly scrambling. She called me in tears, asking if I could take the kids. Of course, I said yes. Jill was heartbroken. She asked me, "Why doesn't Dad want to see us?" I told her sometimes adults struggle, but that didn't mean her dad didn't love her. Jack was confused and upset too. The next morning, Ella picked them up early. She was determined to confront Richard. She came back hours later looking drained but calm. She had told Richard he was no longer getting weekends automatically. He would now have to request time a week in advance, and if he cancelled last minute, he'd lose his next chance. Richard didn't take it well, but Ella stood her ground. She explained how his inconsistency was hurting the kids. When our parents found out, they were furious. They blamed me again, saying I filled Ella's head and ruined the family. Our mom even accused me of being jealous because Richard was a better father than my ex. That stung. My ex may have failed in many ways, but at least he was consistent. I reminded them how Jill and Jack felt each time Richard let them down. That finally made them pause, but they still gave Richard the benefit of the doubt. Ella, though, was grateful. She said I helped her see the damage done by always trying to keep the peace. She finally felt in control. Now, the situation is still rocky. Richard doesn't like the new setup, but he's going along with it for now. The kids are adjusting slowly. Without last-minute cancellations, Ella is more relaxed. And I think, just maybe, Richard will realize he needs to put in effort. Jill recently asked why things changed. I told her parents were trying new ways to spend time with her and Jack. She nodded but still looked unsure. It's not perfect, but it's better. I'm still supporting Ella and the kids. I'm also giving my parents space, hoping they come around. This isn't easy, but I believe Jill and Jack are better off now. Things were finally starting to look better, but this month, everything changed again. At first, the new agreement with Richard seemed promising. He scheduled visits with the kids and actually showed up on time. Ella felt cautiously optimistic, but 2 weeks ago, she called me in tears. She had just found out that Richard had lost his job, 3 months ago. He hadn't told anyone, not her, not the kids. All those weekends he said he was busy, or out of town for work. He was either going to job interviews or trying to figure out how to make ends meet. Ella was devastated. They used to be open about everything, especially money. They always made big decisions together. Now, she felt betrayed, hurt, confused, and guilty for being hard on him when he was struggling in silence. She asked me what to do. I told her to talk to him privately. Get all the facts first, without judgment, then decide. So she did. The next day, they had a long talk. Richard finally opened up. He admitted he was ashamed. Losing his job crushed him. He was determined to get another one before anyone found out, but the process took longer than he expected. He even skipped seeing the kids because he couldn't afford to take them anywhere. It explained so much, though it didn't excuse it. They talked for hours and came to a new agreement. Ella would be more flexible, but Richard now had to ask in advance to see the kids. No more last-minute excuses. She also offered to help with the kids financially while he looked for a new job. I was proud of her. I warned her to stay cautious, check that he was genuinely job hunting, and not using her kindness. When our parents found out, their stance flipped. After months of telling Ella she was too harsh, now they said she was too soft. And once again, they blamed me, saying I was the one manipulating her behind the scenes. I told them the truth. Ella's a grown woman making her own choices. They didn't like that. They told us they were done helping until we all got our priorities straight. This whole situation made me realize how fast we judge others without knowing the whole story. Richard should have been honest. But I understand how fear and shame can drive people to bad decisions. For now, Ella and Richard are doing their best. The kids are spending more time with their dad, and he seems more present, probably because he's not hiding anymore. I'm helping where I can. Watching the kids when needed. Making sure Richard doesn't fall back into old patterns. And hoping that open communication will lead to healing for everyone, especially for Jill and Jack. Update 3. The turning point. It's been over 2 months since that last update, and I'm still trying to process everything. About 3 weeks ago, Richard called Ella, excited. He had a promising job interview. But it was scheduled for the weekend he was supposed to have the kids. He asked to switch weekends. Ella agreed. I offered to watch Jill and Jack so she could rest. Everything was fine, until Ella called me that afternoon, furious and terrified. The police had just contacted her. Richard had gotten into a serious car accident on the way to the interview. His car was wrecked. We rushed to the hospital. Richard was alive, thank God, but he had a broken leg and serious bruises. And then came the worst part. The officer told us Richard's car had open alcohol containers. His blood alcohol level was high. Ella broke down. All her hope for Richard's progress shattered in that moment. I was too angry to comfort her. He had risked his life. Missed a chance to support his kids. Hidden everything, again. A few days after he was released, Ella confronted him. That's when he finally admitted it. He had been drinking for years, even before they separated. He said it helped him cope with job loss and the shame of failing his family. Our uncle's battle with alcoholism flashed in my mind. It destroyed his marriage and tore our extended family apart. I feared the same for Richard. Ella was furious, but also determined. She separated her anger from her concern for the kids. After a long and emotional conversation, Richard agreed to enter rehab. Under the new plan, he won't be allowed to see the kids in person during treatment. Ella updates him twice a week over video calls. She told Jill and Jack that their dad is sick and getting help. Jill had so many questions. She's old enough to notice something's wrong. Jack, he's too young to fully understand. Our parents were shocked. They finally apologized, to Ella and to me, for missing the warning signs. They've stepped up since, helping with the kids, asking about Richard's treatment, supporting us, even if it took a crisis to get here. Emotionally, I'm still shaken. I'm furious with Richard, but deep down, I do hope this is a turning point for him. Ella is doing everything she can to stay strong, for herself and the kids. She's attending Al-Anon meetings and taking things one day at a time. I'm doing my best to keep things normal for Jill and Jack. We bake, watch movies, build forts, anything to distract from their confusion and sadness. Jack clings to me. Jill has nightmares. It's been an emotional roller coaster. But I'm cautiously hopeful. Richard has a long road ahead. But if he takes it seriously, maybe this could be the beginning of something better, for everyone. For now, we're just taking it one day at a time. Thanks for sticking around to the end. If you found this story powerful, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next drama-filled episode.